You want a podcast? Welcome to Flute 360, the podcast that reminds you everything is connected. I'm Dr. Heidi K. Begay, flutist, educator, creative entrepreneur, and follower of Christ. Here, we explore the full circle, the 360 of your life as a musician. Because who you are as a person shapes who you are as an artist, and the lessons you learn outside the practice room are just as vital as the hours with your flute in hand. From health and spiritual growth to artistry and career fulfillment, this space is where it all intersects. Come as you are. There's a seat for you at the Flute 360 table. Today's episode is episode 344, and it's titled The Music Teacher's Playbook, Proven Strategies to Start, Grow, and Thrive in Your Private Studio, Part 1. Have you ever felt like you're pouring your heart into teaching but still can't seem to grow your studio? You're not alone. One flutist I know teaches from a shared space and worries every month if she'll have enough students to stay afloat. Another just moved to a brand new city and feels like she's starting from zero again. And so many of us are wondering how to recruit motivated students, get paid on time, and build stability doing what we love. If any of that sounds familiar, take a deep breath. You're in the right place. This week on Flute 360, I'm hosting a special 3-part series with my friends, Dr. Katherine, Emeneth, and Nathalie, Simper. Together, we're unpacking how to start, grow, and sustain a thriving private music studio from the ground up. So stay tuned through Thursday, and be sure to click the link in the show notes to schedule a chat with Katherine. She'll listen to your story and help you discover whether her music teacher's playbook is the next best step for you. Hey there, guys. Welcome back to another Flute 360 podcast episode. I am with the amazing Katherine, Emeneth, and Nathalie Simper. And the reason why I'm so giddy excited is because this is the first time that all three of us ladies have been in the same room with the same microphones in the same space talking about the same topic of music studio building that we are so passionate about. So thank you guys for being here, and thank you so much for just the heart and the content that you throw out into our industry. Like, I will be the first ones to say, from a lot of 360ers perspective, that we really appreciate your heart, your soul, your being a pioneer and trailblazer in this space. And that does not go unappreciated. So thank you.
Oh, well, back at you, Heidi. I know we're both thrilled to be here. We're like fangirling a little bit, and thrilled to be able to, have this conversation because we've all been in the similar situations before and all have similar perspectives. And I think it's going to be really great for us to be able to talk about all of those things.
Yeah.
I'm fangirling a lot because I just admire both of you so much. So I'm like stoked for us to talk about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. And what we are going to talk about today is finding career and financial fulfillment for that modern day musician, and specifically for that modern day flutist, since we are in the Flute 360 world. And we've all been there. All three of us ladies have built our studios from the ground up. And we came to a point at some point in our career paths where we said enough is enough. We have invested our time. We have put a lot of our skills, to the test with degrees and putting ourselves out for auditions. And when the market isn't sustainable and there isn't job opportunities out there for a particular season, for a particular reason, and we're going to talk about that, at some point, we have all come to that crossroad and have decided enough is enough. I know I have value. I know I have skills. I know I have put in the investment. And so I want to be creatively and financially fulfilled to create a beautiful life, not only for myself, but for my future students and for my community. And so I know that that's where our head space and our heart space is. So that's the foundation of where we're at. So let's go back to that moment for you, Nathalie. When was your I've had enough moment? When was the time when you're just like, I am done. I have these degrees. I know I have worth. Let me show up and do my thing.
Yeah, well, I think for me, the first I'm done moment before studio building, which is pivotal in how I got to that point with studio building, is just with classical music in general. I was so burned out after getting 2 degrees and just, I was like exhausted. I wasn't myself. I was literally like a shell. I was not healthy, and music was supposed to be something that was my passion and that fed my life. And it became something that was draining me. So I quit for a year cold turkey. And in taking that step, one of the biggest realizations was that classical music is very much a part of me. And if I wanted to continue doing that for a living, I needed to do things differently. I needed to do things in a way that honored myself as an individual, as a human being, and still honored the purpose and the mission that I have, which is to help others and to be part of this education space. So it really fed into my kind of I'm done moment with studio building, because I realized that a lot of the things that I wanted to do with the studio, I couldn't do without addressing the non-music things. So I had my big fancy degrees in performance. So I knew how to play the flute very, very well, but I didn't know the first thing about balancing my budget. I didn't know the first thing about recruiting students or about how to structure my studio so that it can be just like a fine-tuned, well-oiled machine that makes my job as an educator, as a flutist, as a performer, and a teacher that much easier to focus on. So that was, about a year and a half after I finished my master's degree. And it was a great opportunity, really, because I ended up finding Katherine Emeneth on the internet about and talking about studio building. And I was like, I don't know the first thing about studio building. So I've tried everything myself and I was able to get students, but there were so many gaps in my knowledge. And I was like, I can't fill them myself. I don't even know what questions I have to be asking so that I can get the information that I need. And here is someone who is doing the thing and who knows the questions that I should be asking and also how to answer them. So that was my experience in going from I have no idea what I'm doing to I have no idea what I'm doing, but it looks like somebody else does.
So let me pick her brain because I want to know what to do. Yeah. And I thank you for being real, and thank you for saying that you had a gap year between graduation and not knowing what the next step was or, at the time is. And so the reason why I say thank you for that is because I think a lot of flutists feel like they have failed. They have failed if they don't know what the next step is post-graduation. And for you to kind of be wading in the waters and trying to figure out what that next step is, and for you to come back and say, okay, enough is enough. I need to hire somebody who is doing the thing, who has results, and I want those same results. You picked up 12 months later. And the timing is to each their own. It doesn't have to look, perfect book ready of going, okay, you graduate, you get your job and you check off these boxes. It doesn't work like that. That's not the real world. So thank you for being vulnerable and saying like, hey, it took some time, for me to figure out what my path was. And then once I did, I realized I need a coach to fill in that void, to fill in that gap, to fill in that knowledge, because guess what? P.S. my school curriculum and my degree didn't give that to me, and that's the reality for a lot of us. Katherine, what was your I can't take it anymore moment leading up to I'm going to build my own thing?
Yeah, I've had many of them, but I always knew, my parents they were raised very poor in the countryside of South Carolina, et cetera. And so as soon as I said the words majoring in music, they were like, no, because it is such a volatile career path and it's scary. And I was like, look, if anybody can make it happen, it's going to be me. I'll show you. And you know what? I did. And I did everything. I did everything above and beyond in my schooling that was expected. I knew that I needed to be a good performer. I knew that I needed to be a good teacher, and I knew I needed to be a good administrator. So I worked my tail off to be excellent at all of those things so that I would have no problem getting a job after I graduated. And so after working for so long and literally checking every single box, like creating my own summer music festival, getting into an international flute competition, doing a tour of master classes around the country, like building my own private studio up 3 times in different locations, learning how to do website design all on my own, teaching elementary music, teaching early childhood music, knowing how public schools worked, knowing all of the things, I did literally everything that you're supposed to
and
do.
You're not even exaggerating.
You not even exaggerating. Yes. Like all these wrinkles that are starting to come out, that's where they came from. And so, after graduating with a doctorate degree, and I had already been applying for jobs while I was still in school, and I did everything I was told because I'm, type A, organized little flute player over here. And I was really, really ready to just get that job and be done and, just feel like I had accomplished the thing I had worked so hard for and sacrificed so much for. And so when the rejections either didn't even come because some schools don't even bother sending you rejection letters, or I heard through the grapevine that so-and-so was in the finals or so-and-so was in the finals, like, okay, well, they have their finalists, so I guess I didn't get it, then it started weighing on me. And then when I did finally start making it into the finals, it's very interesting because the things that got me into the finals were not the international flute competition. It was not that I did a tour of master classes around the country. It was the fact that I had a music education degree, that I had built private studios, that I was in public schools all the time. And people wanted that type of teacher to teach the students who were at those universities because those were the paths that they were going to do. But I still didn't get the gigs because of either spousal hires, like where one, spouse was like in mechanical engineering. And so they wanted to make room for the other person, or because I didn't have enough orchestral experience, or because of this, or because of that. And I got really irritated and frustrated. And I got tired of getting whiplash of thinking about where I was going to live and how it was going to make it work. And so I was done. And especially after hearing how much they were going to pay me and how much recruiting I was going to have to do, I said, you know what, let's just do my own thing. Let's do my own thing. And so we moved back to the Atlanta area where I'm from. And honestly, my tail was between my legs. I felt like a failure. I was walking around my parents' house because, yes, we lived with my parents for a year and a half after we moved back to Atlanta because we couldn't afford a house. And I would say, I'm a failure. And I couldn't get out of the bed because I was so depressed, had these weird stomach issues just from being stressed and anxious, and had to, lots of therapy and all of that kind of stuff. And it was just really awful. It was that's probably the worst I've ever felt in my life. Like thinking that, hard work will pay off. And it didn't in the way that I thought it would. It did in other ways, but not in the way that I thought it would. And so I had to have this complete mindset shift, as I think we all have had to do, about redefining what success looks like for us. And for me, that was always in music education and helping other people. And so the way I pivoted was like focus on pre-college music education or working with adult amateurs, get really active in the community, build bridges in the community, learn about people, be a resource for these folks. And then also pay it forward by teaching musicians these skills that are absolutely essential to be a professional music in the world today that you do not get when you were in college. And so that has been the mission, is to be here with my community as well as our greater community of musicians. But it's been hard and it's not been pleasant. And there's been many ups and downs. But luckily, I've got a Nathalie and I've got a Heidi, and we have each other and all of the people that are in our program too. You know, we're a community where we talk real about these issues and these things, and we can move through it together.
I love all of that. Oh my goodness. One of the underlining themes that I'm hearing through all of this is us ladies, we chose ourselves and we hired ourselves. So when the committees kept coming back with rejection after rejection after rejection, and not just 5 rejections, you know, and being like, oh, boo-hoo. No, we're talking like, for me, it was like 100 to 200 rejections. And I mean, I'm not exaggerating. And when when I finally got that job in China, the pandemic took away the job. And then I was like, I'm going to go through 200 more no's for me to be a finalist, for them to say, no, sorry, we gave it to that spouse or the et cetera. Yeah. And Eric had to draw the line in the sand for me and go, we need to stop and reevaluate this. And I was totally like, backed him up with that, because I could clearly see that something had to change. Right. But all that's to say is we chose ourselves and we ended up hiring ourselves. Yes. So this is from Nathalie, Katherine, and I to you, the listener. Like, this is your permission slip to hire yourself. If you're tired of hearing no's, if you're tired of not seeing those opportunities out there in the market for you, and you know you have value to give to your people and community, then show up for yourself and hire yourself and say, hired, done, let's go, let's build something. And what I've learned over here creating, and I'm saying this very loosely because it's not just my door, it's our door, it's the community's door, but building my own door through 360, I'm actually more fulfilled over here because I have more of a say in how things are developed, organized, run, etc. And so that's really empowering. And so speaking of that, I want to kind of, again, not to throw anyone under the bus. This is my disclaimer, okay? But I want to start pulling back the curtain of the reality of the conversations that are being had in academia. So as you guys know, I have spoke and interviewed over 300 people in 7 years. You get to hear a lot.
Sure do.
to say the least. And among those conversations in like pre-recordings or post-recordings or, you know, conversations leading up to the actual date of recording, you know, my curiosity gets the best of me sometimes. And I kind of poke, you know, just lovingly, you know, this flute professor or this music professor here or there and say, out of curiosity. So you hire, or not hire, but you invite 20 new students into your flute studio year after year for the academic session. And are you aware that most of these graduates are having a difficult time finding work within their field? Just because I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Like maybe they're still stuck in the 1970s, 1980s of going, you get your degree and you get your academic job or you get your orchestral position, done. But, you know, and they're like, no, I know the reality of this. I know that, you know, most of my flute students will not get that traditional job. And I'm like, okay, so then as a follow-up question for clarity in my curious brain, then why do the schools keep bringing in and recruiting even more students into the system every year when you know that that degree hanging up on their wall is not giving them the job that they are air quote promised? And they will flat out say, I have to keep my own job. I have to recruit X amount of students into my studio in order for my department head not to fire me. Mm-hmm. That makes my mouth like agape, like to the ground. Like, I get it. I mean, I totally get it. They're covering their end, but at the end of the day, how? Yeah. How can we be doing that much of a disservice to students coming in bubbly-eyed and wagging tails and going, I love music. This is great. And I'm going to make a job of it. But you're only giving them half of the equation. You are showing them how to play their instruments oh so beautifully, the right notes, in tune, at the right time. But you're not teaching them how to put it out into the current job market. I'm sure this does not surprise you.
No, it does not at all. And this is that greater conversation of, in higher education, do we teach them the craft or the career or both? And like, because I've spoken with college professors too over the years, and they literally say, well, that's not my job. It's not my job to teach someone how to have a career doing this. My job is to show up and teach them how to play their instrument and to show them the craft. That's somebody else's job, is to teach them how to have a career in it. So it's like, you know, that greater conversation of, why do you go to music school, and how can we make that become more clear for people, you know, who are entering music school? And I totally get it too with like the rotating door, you know, like I want to keep my job. I have to recruit so I can keep my own job. And honestly, it's the same thing with private teaching, except maybe it's a little less gross because you're enriching someone's life through music instead of feeling like that you're, you know, pushing them into this field without the full toolbox. Nathalie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think in my, reflecting on my own experience as a college student, both in undergrad and in my master's degree, something that I realized was I was given a lot of tools by my flute professors about how to solve my own problems, how to be a critical thinker, and how to analyze things and come up with my own solutions for issues that I was having on my instrument in the practice room. And for whatever reason, it never occurred to me to apply those same critical thinking and problem solving skills into other facets of my life, including building up my career. And, I have my own personal strengths that also, it never occurred to me to apply those into, building up my mastery of the instrument. So I think, in some instances, maybe it feels like as educators, we are so specialized, we know how to play our instrument so well. And that's the thing that we're going to focus on. But whether you're teaching in a college or university, whether you're teaching privately or however else you fill up an educator role, it's our responsibility to teach the human as a whole. And that includes talking about the realities of deciding to major in music. That means being transparent and having conversations about, well, these are the things that we do really well. And these are the things that are not included in our curriculum, like small business management. If you're going to be building up a private studio, I don't know of any curriculum, music curriculum, that has that kind of course or that kind of training, but at least being transparent to say, these are the things that we don't have a structure for. These are the things that aren't in place yet. So then they at least know, okay, they know what they're getting into, as opposed to, like you said, Heidi, like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, like ready to take over the world. And then by the end of the degree or sometime sooner, realizing, well, I don't really have all the skills that I need to build up my career, but I know how to play my instrument really well.
Yeah. Yeah. And that right there, that bright-eyed and bushy-tailness, gets defeated when they come to coaches like us, because they can play their instrument very well and they know that they're good players. But when they hear rejection after rejection, like I know my 360ers are like, well, in conversation, they'll say to me from time to time, something will come up along the lines of, well, it must be me. I must not be good enough. And it's like, it's not a quality issue. It's a quantity issue. And that's something else we want to talk today about. In the job market, there's just not enough quantity. Like I'm referring to the quantity part. There's not enough jobs in the market to sustain all of the high qualitative music students that are being pushed out into the job market. So it's not a question of whether you are a good enough flute player. It's a question of like, is the market able to sustain the amount of graduates? And so what would you like to add to that, Katherine?
Yeah, I think that's that's exactly what the problem is. And the other problem is a supply and demand problem. Demand's shrinking. I think we're always going to have music in universities, but I think the number of universities who have a full-blown music program is going to, shrink, because that's just what the trend is looking like, and I hate to say it, but in a way it makes sense, because if people are, not getting jobs and they're going into college with the hope that having this degree will get them a job, but then they don't get it, then that does something to our industry and our culture. And if we don't change it, it's going to, keep shrinking, sadly. And it's got to evolve and it's got to change. What I was going to say is that when my own high school students come to me and they're like, "Hey, Dr. E, I have a question." I'm like, "Okay, I think I want to major in music." I'm like, "Okay, great. That's awesome. Okay, what else are you going to major in addition to music?" And they're like, "Well, I was just thinking music performance." No, you have to have a second major. What's that second major going to be? So all of my students who approach me for wanting to major in music, I literally almost require them to double major in music and something different, so that they can learn a secondary skill set that they can either combine with music, or that they can, just do separately. So they keep music in their lives, they keep learning, they keep growing, but then they also have this other skill set that's at the ready and ready to go. And I have a student right now who is not a performance major, but is double majoring in performance and computer science. And she texted me last week, all caps, "Dr. E, I made it into the finals of the university's concerto competition." And she beat out the DMA students and the master's students and the people who are performance majors. So yes, you can do both. It does not make you less of a person. It makes you smart. Everyone's talented. Everyone is amazing. And so, be smart though about your future, and you have to make sure that your music has something to sit on top of. It has to have some groundedness to it, because you never know, especially these days, what the world is going to throw at us. And so you have to have multiple passions in order to, turn up the volume on one when times get a little tough.
1000%. Natalie?
It's important to also know how your passion for music fits into your lifestyle and the goals that you have as an individual, and for the trajectory of your career. I have a lot of students who when they have that conversation of what am I going to major in when I go into college, a lot of them want to major in music because it's already such a big part of their life. They've been in band since the 6th grade, sometimes earlier. And then they're in marching band, where they're literally just engrossed and encompassed by this music culture day in and day out for 4 years. And the idea that all of a sudden that's all going to change and it's not going to fit in the same way in their life is something that, for teenagers is just incomprehensible. So having that conversation of, well, what exactly do you want? What kind of role do you want music and the flute to play in your life? And if it's just, well, I just enjoy it so much, we have conversations of, well, this is how you can still be involved in music. This is how you can still have opportunities to play the flute in your college experience without necessarily having to major in music. That it's not just the music majors who are allowed to enjoy having that as a part of their life, that's their whole life. But if you have passions in chemical engineering, in entrepreneurship, in whatever other major that you have interest in, then you can still find ways to fit music into your life, that you can still be a lover of music, just it might look a little bit different than when you were in middle and high school.
Yeah, completely. And I think you said it so well, Nathalie. And I think a lot of flutists resonate with this, that identity marker. We become so engrossed with my identity is flutist. My identity is flute. And it's that's great. But at the end of the day, what's the reality around your career, and what are you going to shape? What are you going to marry together? These different skill sets, passions, you know, you need to have that real conversation with your mentors and teachers, so that way you can find, you know, that creative fulfillment, but also that financial fulfillment, what's going to pay the bills, because we have basic needs: shelter, clothing, food, all that jazz. And at some point, those student loans, they run up, you know, and at some point, the parents, they don't keep covering your health insurance at some point, you know. And I have a student who just graduated last year, and she loved music so much, but same conversation that I had, just like Katherine did, and you do, Nathalie, with your students. It's like, okay, flute and you're majoring in music education and she decided veterinary sciences. And so she's going to do both because she loves animals. And she's like, you know what? I don't have all the answers right now. I have an idea of the framework of what I would like my career to be in the next 4 to 6, 8 years. And that includes, I love helping animals. I want them to get better from sickness and injuries. I want to be a vet tech. And that's going to be my 9 to 5 of my income, health insurance, 401k. That's going to be my stability. And then I could see myself in the evenings performing, or I could see on the weekends, like having a small part-time flute studio and being like a Dr. Heidi and helping students in that way. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. So, you know, these conversations, like Katherine and I are a little bit older than you, Nathalie. We're geriatric millennials here. But these conversations, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Katherine, but like in the 90s, and when I graduated from high school in 03, when I went off to college, these conversations were not had with me. And I don't think they were with you either.
No, it was major in music education because you can have at least a guarantee of a job. But there was a stigma that the performance people were superior.
Oh, yes.
And that the education people were poo-poo, you know? So here I was, this education major, still playing great and stuff, and it was awesome, and it was really cool. And luckily tides have changed, and like it's more, you know, less grossness around your major. But yeah, there were no conversations about this, you know, that were happening, and it was just like, yeah, go teach band if you can't get a job.
Yeah, I remember that too. And I remember vividly thinking, I'm not a band director.
Yeah.
I'm not. I know I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Nathalie, I'm sorry.
Yeah, when I was in school, these conversations weren't had either. And it was a little, you could see that people wanted to talk about it, but as humans, we look for a lot of social and societal cues, like for permission to talk about things, to do things. And so when people did talk about the real struggles of building a music career, or just the pressure and how that manifests in the classical music industry, these people were perceived as difficult or unusual. Like they were treated differently because they were wanting to have these open and real conversations. And thankfully now, even within the past like 5 years, you know, maybe it took a global pandemic to start opening those doors for people to feel like they don't have to wait for permission to have these conversations. And, you know, circling back to what we had talked about, the scarcity of jobs, you know, we're waiting for these jobs to open up instead of giving ourselves permission to create these jobs ourselves. I remember after I decided to come back to classical music and make it my full-time career after my gap year, I had considered going and getting a doctorate. And I had this conversation with myself of, well, what am I looking for to gain from a doctorate that I don't already have? And it was like some of those same things that a lot of flute players, a lot of classical musicians are looking for. I wanted to teach at a university or a college. I wanted to perform full time with an orchestra. I wanted to have teaching and performing opportunities. And I was reflecting on what I had, the things that I had given myself permission to have. I was subbing with a whole bunch of orchestras at the time. I was teaching at a university where I had gotten the job just purely from word of mouth and my reputation in my area. And I had a studio that I built on my own terms. I didn't wait for people to to give me these opportunities, I gave myself permission to seek out these opportunities. And I realized, well, I have everything that I have and that I want, that I thought that only a doctorate would be able to give me. But instead I have it, and I don't need that one thing to tell me that I have permission to do it and that I'm qualified to do it.
Bam, you could not have said that any better. I love that. And we're going to continue this conversation, y'all, into part 2. And part 2, we're going to be handing you, not that you need it from us, but we are going to be handing you that permission slip to build the thing you want to build. Whether that's, we're talking specifically about your flute studio, right? But if you want to build out your gigging schedule, if you want to build out, whatever is on your heart and mind for your career and how you envision it to be, go do it. Go do the thing. And we're going to talk about how being a teacher and building out your studio is not second best. How it can be creatively and financially fulfilling and one of the most rewarding occupations that you find yourself in, to get excited for the future, to get excited about the possibilities and the opportunities for your life. And yeah, we want to give you that piece of empowerment. So thank you for being here today, and don't miss part 2. That wraps up part 1 of our Music Teachers Playbook series. I hope today's conversation gave you a fresh sense of clarity about what's possible for your teaching studio. Before you close this episode, click the link in the show notes to book your time with Dr. Katherine Emeneth. She'll sit down with you, hear where you are, and help you map out your next confident step. You've got this. Let's talk about Flute.